The journey of Daniel. Daniel was born and raised in a small rural town, surrounded by rice fields, quiet rivers, and neighbors who all knew each other by name. Life in his hometown was simple and predictable, mornings filled with the crowing of roosters, afternoons with children playing on dusty roads, and evenings under a sky scattered with stars. For years, this was all Daniel had known, and he found comfort in the calm rhythm of rural life. But his dream, the one that pushed him forward, was to study at a university in the city and build a future beyond the fields. The day he finally left home felt both exciting and terrifying. As the bus carried him away from his village, he watched the familiar scenery fade, the golden rice paddies, the small market stalls, the people waving him goodbye. Slowly, those sights were replaced by highways, endless streams of cars, and tall concrete buildings that seemed to rise endlessly toward the sky. The city was loud, fast, and crowded, everything opposite of where he came from. His first week in the city was overwhelming. Streets buzzed with motorbikes and cars. Neon lights blinked late into the night, and shops spilled out with goods he had never seen before. He lived in a small rented room on the edge of a noisy street, where the sounds of honking horns and chatter replaced the crickets and frogs of his countryside nights. At first, he lay awake for hours, unable to sleep, his heart racing with both homesickness and wonder. University life introduced him to an entirely new world. The campus was enormous, filled with buildings, libraries, and lecture halls larger than his entire high school back home. Crowds of students hurried between classes, carrying laptops and thick textbooks. Daniel felt small and out of place at first, his accent and rural background making him shy to speak up. But slowly, he began to adapt. He discovered the joy of exploring knowledge, sitting in lectures where professors spoke of ideas that seemed to open entire universes in his mind. Days were filled with classes, but nights were reserved for work. The cost of living in the city was high, and his family could only send a small amount of money each month. To survive, Daniel took on part-time jobs. He served food at restaurants, carried boxes in small shops, and sometimes worked late into the night cleaning or tutoring children. The work was tiring, and many times he returned to his small room completely exhausted, his body aching, but he never let himself give up. Each hour of work meant he could pay rent, buy meals, and continue his studies. The city that once felt cold and alien slowly began to feel like a second home. Daniel learned the shortcuts between streets, found affordable food stalls where he could eat after classes, and discovered quiet corners of the library where he could study in peace. The busyness of the city no longer frightened him, it energized him. He realized that, although life here was hard, it was also full of opportunities. Every street, every building, every crowd seemed to whisper stories of dreams being pursued. He wanted to be part of that story. His student years passed in a blur of effort and determination. Mornings began early with lectures, afternoons continued with assignments, and evenings stretched into late-night work shifts. He rarely had free time, but he carried within him the fire of youth, the belief that hard work today would create a better tomorrow. There were times when he stumbled, when the stress of exams and the weight of bills made him question whether he could go on. But he always stood up again, remembering the quiet village he had come from and the hope in his parents' eyes when they sent him away. Gradually, Daniel grew stronger, not only in knowledge but also in spirit. He learned how to balance work and study, how to manage his time, and how to stay disciplined even when life grew overwhelming. He began to see the city not just as a place of noise and lights, but as a teacher in itself, teaching him resilience, independence, and the value of persistence. By the time he reached his final year at university, Daniel was no longer the shy boy who had first stepped off the bus years earlier. He was confident, experienced, and determined. The city had shaped him, tested him, and changed him. His hands were rough from part-time jobs, his eyes sometimes tired from sleepless nights, but his mind was sharper than ever, filled with dreams of what lay ahead. Daniel understood that his journey was far from over. Graduation would only mark the beginning of another chapter, finding a career, building a life, and creating a future better than the one he had once imagined while standing in the fields of his hometown. But no matter where life would take him, He carried within his heart the memory of both worlds, the peaceful countryside that gave him roots, and the vibrant city that gave him wings. His story was one of transformation, of moving from a boy in a small village to a man shaped by the trials and triumphs of student life in the city. And though challenges still awaited, he was no longer afraid. With every step, every lecture, every late-night shift, he had been preparing himself for the road ahead. His student years had not just been about learning from books but about learning from life itself, how to endure, how to grow, and how to dream. In the end, Daniel's journey was not only about becoming educated, it was about becoming someone new. From a small village to the endless possibilities of the city, he had walked the path with resilience and hope, carrying the belief that with effort and perseverance, even the most ordinary boy could change his destiny.